All right, so the first thing we want to do is have our objects anchored into the background, so it doesn't look like they're floating in space. Right now it looks like the snail's kind of floating in space. So I'm going to show you how to do shadows under them, shadows that look like something like this, and reflections. So if you had something in the water, it would look like it was actually in the water. So first thing we're going to do is isolate our snail. Now, the background that he's on that we need to duplicate is the leaf. Okay, so the layer that we have for that is the leaf that we need to duplicate. So we're going to duplicate that layer right there. Control J or right click on it, either one. Once we have that, because that's what we're going to do our painting on, is that layer. So we're going to come in and we're going to get our brush, make sure we have black selected, and then make sure, our opacity is somewhere around 15%. Okay? 15 to 20. And you're going to paint right behind him. Even though the brush is a little bit bigger, it's going to come and create a little, you're going to just keep painting. You kind of paint over it, much darker closer to him than farther away, but you make sure your brush is soft by coming into your brush palette. So your hardness should be all the way down, which it is, and you're just going to feather it kind of around where he is. Whoops, don't want to go too far. And so just underneath there, and feather it, and we're going to make it even a little bit smaller and darker, and we only want it where he's touching, okay, because that's what makes it look natural. That's what creates the shadow, is where something is touching. So we're kind of just coming in and making it really dark, really close to where he's actually touching. So now when you look at, and then you can feather it out. If you know where the shadows are, you can kind of feather it out a bit here if you know that. But you see the difference with him there just floating off in space, and then here with him actually being anchored there. And we have a layer, so we can undo that or leave it, whichever we want to do. Now on the case of this though, we have an actual definite shadow coming down here. So we know that we want to create a shadow something like this. So the way we're going to do that is I'm going to turn that layer off because we're going to create a shadow that looks like this under him now. So we want to go to him. So we're going to right, if we have our moving tool and we right click inside of him, the top layer that comes up is that layer. So he's there. So we're going to duplicate him, Control J. So we have two of him now. We're going to do Control T for transform. Then we're going to right click and go flip vertical. So we're going to have upside down version of this guy. And we want to kind of line them up, so as the shadow of this is, so something along these lines. And you can tilt them to however you think it's going to show up best. Something like that. And then once you have that done, you're going to go over here to fill it. So you're going to go to Edit, and you're going to go to Fill. The critical thing is here, if you don't have Preserve Transparency checked, when you go to fill it with black, it's going to fill up like the whole entire screen. So we don't want that. So when we go to Edit Fill, we're going to make sure we have this Preserve Transparency checked. And then we want to make sure we have it black. So we just say OK. So it's just going to make him all black. Now the shadow isn't really that dark. So we're going to come up here to the opacity. And we're going to take that down here to make it match the other shadow, which is really nice that we have another shadow that we can match it with. So we can get it pretty close to the same tone. But you'll notice that it has fuzzy edges on it. So we want to come up here to Filter, and we want to go to Blur. Gaussian blur works really well, and somewhere you can come over here and, well, here we'll preview this on and off. So right now at 4.8 pixels it's not quite blurred enough. Maybe you'll blur it a little bit more so that it matches the other shadow that's in there, that great reference one we have. Don't go too far. So somewhere in here until it's about right. And we say OK. So now we have that shadow matching kind of that. And we can come in and do Control T, and we can squish the shadow up and elongate it, because that's what's happening with the other shadow. There's a bunch of different, if we right click, we can warp it a bunch of different ways to get the perspective right. But generally, just sometimes doing it this way, we can get it fairly right. So something like that. We probably want it to be touching. And I don't know if if you want to carry him, you have to figure out, do you want to carry him up under here? Right under him, and you can erase that to get that so it looks like it's right on there. Probably we do, because if the shadow's there, we probably want it touching him,
Here, your keys, Mr. Thank you.
So maybe something like that. Kind of looks fairly okay. We'd probably still want to come in and put our shadow under there on him to make it look like he's actually on there. But now you see that that shadow kind of matches that, right? This one, because the shadow is going to fall this way, I don't know if I would do anything on this one. But let's say we're going to take this and put him in the water. Oh, you got something else in here. Let's go back. Huh, what is that? Is that a drop of water? Alright, so we need him again, and I don't know why we're not getting him. But it shouldn't be locked. Now we want to make a reflection of him. Okay, that's easier. I mean, of course, he's not going to be in the water like that, but we're going to, whoops. All right, we're going to duplicate him again. Right click. Oops, sorry. Control T to transform him. Right click, flip him vertical. So now the reflection is there for him in the water. Okay, so we kind of have it touching. And then we're going to take that opacity way down. So it looks like it's in the water. Okay, like that. Now what we would want to do on him is we would want to probably erase him so it looks like, make sure we're on the right layer. We want to erase under him a bit so it looks like the water is actually coming up on him. You know, that he's in the water. Otherwise it won't look like he's in it. So that's what we would do.